go through Gmail in order to get it.
Yeah.
And I like everything coming in on the same mailbox all the time.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you put it under other instead of, like Todd was saying, put it under other instead of saying it's Gmail, configured manually.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So when I come in here, just make a whole new configuration for other.
Yeah,
Got it.
I just can't remember if it's, like the big thing is you have to figure out like what the ingoing and outgoing server names are, whether it's, just like mail.google.com.
Okay.
They're easy to find.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know they, I'm pretty sure Google never uses port 25. Like that's,
Yeah.
when they switched to they only do secure mail, and I think they stopped using it.
456.
456,
Is that,
Yeah.
I think,
450
SSL, and 587 is TLS.
or the 465.
Or, yeah, 465, yeah, you're right.
So it's port 465?
Incoming mail is imap.gmail.com.
Wait a minute.
I was gonna say.
IMAP.
imap.gmail.com with SSL.
.ssl?
With just if there's an SSL checkbox, that should be checked.
I'm just making a note of what you say
Okay.
there.
Yeah, imap.gmail.com, and it requires SSL, and it uses port 993. That's for incoming.
Okay.
For outgoing, it's smtp.gmail.com. Requires SSL,
Okay.
requires TLS, requires authentication.
Change the slides. We need to put the one more thing
Yep.
first.
And you can use port 465.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Has anybody got a good question? Because I'm like, pumpkin last for 1 month was like scraping the bottom of the barrel for me.
But we can do tech support from time. The other
There was
question.
something last month.
Oh, well, the question was pumpkin spice, is it something that's awesome or overhyped? And everybody had to weigh in on their opinion on pumpkin spice. Beer.
Yeah,
Beer
we
came
hit on
up,
that.
coffee.
Yeah.
You know,
With the cinnamon sugar.
Or we could just, I think we're pretty much, we all know each other, we could just skip the introduction.
Let's
and
skip
get
it.
right into the discussion.
Let's skip it this month. Let's do a special 50th.
Yes, there you go.
Now, who owns 50?
If you don't know, it's been, yeah, who else?
We've been here for this many meetings, we should know each other.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
and this is the core group, absolutely.
One of the first times.
Yeah, how many of us were there at the first meeting? I was here. You were here, of
I'm
course.
pretty sure I was, but
Yeah, you were here.
Yeah.
So I don't remember.
It was between 20 and 25.
Yeah, it was a big
Yeah, it was a big group. Yeah, you were there.
They were the first FileMaker people I
What's
had
in your
ever that actually used FileMaker, because I didn't know anybody else that used it.
I remember
Yeah.
seeing-
I thought the company was around for you.
I thought I was the only user.
Yeah.
I was like, why are they doing all these updates just for me?
And then your ego deflated when you came here.
No, it didn't.
No.
Not sure that's possible, right?
Yeah, so, talking about FileMaker 16, I have one slide.
Sucks.
Oh, there's some good stuff
I'm
in there.
kidding. I love it.
Well, if anybody tries to update to iOS 11 and you still have FileMaker Go, 12, 10, 12, 13, because some people have all that on their iPad.
I've had 2, I've had 3.
And that, yeah, but iOS 11 only supports 14, 15, and 16. And make sure you save the save the files that are on your FileMaker Go. Email them to yourself before you upgrade. Because it only takes one time to figure that out. That's okay. I only had to do 11 of them on Monday. And the first one, it was like, oh, well, sorry you lost that. So, oh, well, I'll make you another one day.
I was definitely not happy about losing the iPad 3. Works fine, but no longer supports FileMaker.
Mm-hmm.
Nor can you do the iOS update.
Right. Is anybody doing FileMaker 16 Go? Or Go 16, maybe?
Couple things, nothing major.
We just did our quarterly inventory for our sister company, and we have like a little local app that you can go out and scan, like the steel bundles, and then it runs compares, uploads it, so you can see what was scanned, and then see, okay, what did we scan, what did we miss?
Mm-hmm.
And I ran Go 16 on iOS 11.
Did you notice a difference in Go 16 versus 15 for a task like that? Because you're probably not doing anything 16 particular in it. Seem faster, slower, or it's the same?
It seemed, really, for what we were doing, I didn't really notice a difference. The biggest difference was, and it was, I have to go back for a second. We rolled it out, we were running it in like, Go 14. And then when 15 came out, the scanning wouldn't work. It's like if you had it like on my phone, it worked all day.
Yeah.
But we had some older gen iPod Touches and iPad, or iPad Minis, that when you ran 15, you would like hold, it would go to the camera, and you see it zooming in and out, trying to focus on the barcode.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, that's no good because it's taken 10 times as long to scan.
Yeah.
So we just rolled everybody back to 14 and wrote it up to, okay, it's either something with the iOS or hardware incompatibility, and we just moved on. Well, fast forward a year, we're ready to do the inventories. We roll out, FileMaker or Server 16, so it's like all of a sudden FileMaker 14, even though it says it's supposed to connect, wasn't connecting. So we had forgotten that 15 didn't work. So we think, okay, we'll just throw Go 16 on for everybody, and then that same problem came back.
Huh.
And finally I went out with, instead of testing on my phone, I actually got one of their devices from the plant and went out. And what I found is, like normally, like when it switches to the camera, you can see what it's focusing on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at what I'm focusing on, and I'm seeing like the amount of ambient light that's around it, and the screen was darker than what the actual, just looking at it with my eyes. Well, then I noticed, there's like the little
The
toggle
brightness
at the top
control?
for like whether you can have the flash on or off, which
Yeah.
I used all the time. If I was in like a row that was shadowed or something, it would automatically turn the camera off, flash on, so I had enough light to scan.
Yeah.
But of course, some of the older stuff didn't have the flash, so that didn't work. Well, I noticed there was one in the middle that was switched your resolution, and it went from like full, large, medium, small. As I lowered the resolution, the image got brighter.
Huh.
So all I had to do was go back into the little local app that runs on the phone, instead of having it go to full resolution, because it's like, well, why wouldn't you want it to be full resolution?
Right.
Made it so that it defaulted to small, went out with the iPad Mini, and it was scanning as fast as it used to with Go 16,
Huh.
and it was. And so I went back in 14 to see, well, maybe that was an option in that script step that was added with 15 that I had missed, and it was actually there in 14, but it didn't make a difference in 14, but it did whenever in versions 15 or 16. So that was been the biggest difference that we've seen, and it's like, I was trying to blame the iOS and everything, and here it was just, if I would have checked the checkbox,
That's really useful knowledge.
Yeah.
That's gonna,
Yes, it is.
we're doing 2 scanning apps now, which haven't been a problem, but
Yeah.
that's gonna make me look smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's your next DevCon presentation.
I'll take that, yeah.
We're
Okay, we're
doing
gonna spend an hour
inventory.
talking about checking this box.
We could spend an hour explaining how you got to figure out
Yeah.
that.
And I guess and that was the thing, because it's like, had I not, because I like cop shows and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and they say, you never trust an eyewitness. We want to have empirical evidence. We don't want to take eyewitnesses into the courtroom or whatever.
Right.
Now I know why. Because they're telling me what's wrong. It had nothing to do with what was wrong. It wasn't until I actually went out and saw what it was doing. I was like, wait a minute. What if I
Do
Yeah.
some real testing.
do
and
some real testing? And so it's like, now of course, now it means I've got to get off my chair and out of my office and
Yeah.
actually go out into the plant every once in a while. But that was just one of those things.
But it's
like,
time well spent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, clients,
Especially now that you've distributed it.
the comments from clients is, this report doesn't work. This
Yes.
button doesn't work. Like, can you expand on that? No. Well,
I get that from my users too.
Yeah,
This
that's-
hasn't worked
that's a
since you
user.
guys updated to the new server. What's not work? It just doesn't work.
it doesn't work, yeah.
Well, and then I go over, I stand there, of course it works.
Yeah.
I said, I just put the fear of me in it.
Well, the worst ones are where it really doesn't work. And they didn't even tell you.
Oh,
You just
yeah.
happen to be talking to them like a year later, it's, oh yeah, that hasn't worked
Yes.
for over a year.
Mhm.
Well, what the hell have you been doing?
I
How have you been getting things done?
I had the same conversation, I wonder, they're like, it hasn't worked since we got it. And it's like 2 years, and I was like, what? Why did you tell me?
We just figured
You
you'd
think
fix
I-
it.
I purposely set it up so you couldn't get your job done?
Oh, goodness.
We did fine though, I had 2 users who, unbeknownst to me, were still running 14. After I upgraded the server to 16, I'm getting phone call, hey, what'd you do? Nothing works. It's like, okay,
Like I said, with Go,
15 is fine, but 14 wouldn't go.
that's what we found with Go. But if we opened up like Pro 14, at least on the Mac, we could still connect to 16 server. It was just-
It was on Windows, but we.
Okay. So I can't remember if I tested it on,
Isn't there a setting in the admin console though where you can tell it what the minimum version is that users can connect with?
Yeah.
You might have the admin console set to 15.
In
Whatever
in
it
the
comes as,
database.
I don't know what the
didn't
default
tweak
is.
into that.
In your
Yeah.
options or preferences on your database, there's actually, if you go in there, there's actually a minimum, try.
For the
I
file
think
itself.
For the file itself, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it usually defaults to like whatever version you created the file in. And
Yeah.
The ones that our users were trying to get to were
It might be
old
under
enough
options.
that they should have allowed it.
Options.
Because it usually gives you a warning that says, you're
Right.
not allowed to connect, not
Yeah.
just, it couldn't see any of the hosted
I think
files.
in that case though, it's older than they started keeping track of versions, so.
Oh, well, yeah.
One thing I learned is that, so one of my servers is a 14 server, and if you set a file that can only be accessed by 15 or 16, you can upload it anyway. And the error is, couldn't open the file, go to the server and open the file. That's the whole error. And I'm like, why won't this open? Maddening. So, something to be conscious of.
I think it was 1404 will let you open files on 16. It's the 1403 that wouldn't. So we had to upgrade. We had a myriad of users that were somewhere between 1401 and 1403. I was at 1404. I was opening everything fine, and then trying to figure out why the users couldn't even see anything. So we had to either update them to 1404 or update them to 16. So we actually have probably like 4 or 5 users that are still on 1404 because there's certain things they couldn't do. A lot of the NRG software I'm still questioning. So our shipping department is still running on 1404, so they're able to access it. I still have 3 users that have yet to tell me that they can't open the files. It's been 2 months.
Wait a year.
They can't,
I know they can't.
they're getting something else to do for.
We'll see where they are in a couple weeks.
This is sort of a jump over relation, but I've been playing with the new camera on the iPhone 7. Do all of you know that you can, that on the 6, I think, but certainly on the 7, you can, pull on the screen and you can reset the exposure and focus? Yeah, and where the focus is. Like if I want to focus on you, I can move my square over your face, and then I can pull a bar up and down to say whether I want more or less exposure.
Where is it?
Is that-
I don't
Just
use it
a
enough, I
photo or
guess, yeah.
do portrait?
There's also the portrait mode, which is another matter.
But
Yeah,
you're just pulling down. What are you pulling down?
My iPhone is almost out of juice. If anybody has a charging code, I'll demonstrate on my phone. Otherwise, I'll see if I can. Can you see it, Todd?
Charger.
I think I can here. Because I still have the 6, I don't know if it's.
Oh, yours is on, actually, I don't know what all that is.
Oh, I got it to come up. I see.
That, yeah, that's like what I see when I'm looking at a picture rather than shooting. Maybe I don't know.
Does it look like a little sun next to the square on the line?
Yes.
Okay, I got
And you
it.
can pull it back up and down through that.
See it?
How'd you get it to come up?
I just
You don't know,
don't
do you?
know. I held my hand here, or my finger,
Yeah, I do see
and it
that
came
there.
up.
Yeah, so we have
You have
this
a
little
7, right?
square,
I have an
and
8,
I can
an 8
point it
plus.
to be on that, and then I
She's
can drag
fancy.
the little sun up and
Yeah,
down.
but I was coming
To
from a
set the
6 to this.
exposure.
It's not like a
Yeah.
That's a. But I just
Multi-version.
Yeah, I think I got it
yeah.
there.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's
I just held
it's
it down.
sensitive, and that may be part of the 3D touch that I totally have.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty neat.
What do you have? 7?
Yes.
I don't know what this is.
And there are probably,
That looks like a 6.
I'm trying to think what else I have.
Probably
Joey,
6
I sent Todd a link to this girl, Emil, who does a
We have
weekly
Oh, yeah,
blast.
that's how I bumped this up.
Yeah, that's where I got it too. Her tips are amazing.
What's the name of the tips? What's it called?
It's a girl named Emil.
I think it's a guy,
Is it a guy?
yes.
I thought it was a girl. Emil, Pakarklis.
And actually, a lot of this is coming out in tips. He has a whole video
Oh.
sequence.
Yeah.
Which actually I paid for and I've been going through, but it starts with how to hold the camera steady. And blurring is a big factor. And it also has a reference to an app which costs $2.99 and has an anti-shake mode. And boy, that solidifies things for me. So,
I have an SC and it's showing up on mine, so it has to be
Okay.
part of
of the new
OS
iOS.
11.
Yeah.
Cool.
You ready to talk about card
They just
windows?
take
or-
perfect
Sure.
pictures all the time.
Unless anybody has any general discussion before we dive into the features that we just can't do without anymore.
Yeah, the latest one of these are 5 tricks to do photographs of landscape, setting off on a camping trip, so it's just more. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm ready to shut up and let you proceed.
Lose the word promise, I'm going to be the presenter. And did you get the link there?
Yeah.
thanks to whoever made mention the last meeting of taking your iPad, putting the cable into it and running it through QuickTime Player and running the camera
From
from
the iPad.
your iPad
Yeah, I don't know who
onto the
did that.
screen and then
That was
onto the
cool.
projector. I did that the other day, and boy, does that thing look slick. If you don't want to connect through squirrels or, you know,
Yeah,
that type
yeah.
of thing.
It was like.
Really nice connection, fast, instantaneous response from touching the iPad to showing up.
What type of cable was it?
It was just a regular connector from my iPad, which is a newer iPad, to the USB port. And then whatever you have there.
So I got a little connector, what's the connection on the TVs? Normal connect,
HDMI.
HDMI, it's a little HDMI adapter that's Wi-Fi. Plug it in and then
Oh.
everything goes right to it.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I think it was like $25.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
no matter what what projector, what TV, I can just go there and just boom, pop it right up on.
So that, and that's got the mini plug in, or the small plug goes into the phone or the iPads or what have you.
It's all
Does it
wireless.
work? Oh, it's all
It's
wireless?
all wireless.
And who, I'm sorry, whose is it?
I'll look it up.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry. We really, we've bird walked tonight, haven't we?
We did the one more thing first.
Yeah.
We did.
We did the 7 more things first.
So, I made some generic notes about card windows because I didn't know what the crowd would be here. So some of this is a little bit simple, but basically card windows are a new window option in FileMaker 16. Some cool things about them. Card window has its own context even though it stays connected to the parent window physically,
Which is awesome.
which is awesome. Card windows are modal to the parent window, as opposed to doing a modal window, which is modal to the solution, that you're actually to the application. So these are modal to the parent window, so you can't access the parent window, and you can only have one card window per parent window, but you can have multiple windows open at one time and have a card window on each if for some reason you wanted to. Card windows don't have title bars or menu bars, status toolbars, or a format bar, but you can optionally have the text bar show up. Most common uses that I've seen actually is the picker window and a dialog. But it's very practical for a setup window to show detail view from a list as opposed to something you generally maybe use a popover for. To do a GTRR without losing the context of where you're at is fantastic. I've seen a pretty cool image gallery, and that it's particularly useful as an alternative to popovers. So what I've found is the same problem when popovers first came. I'm overusing card windows, and I'm using it in places where a popover would still be totally fine, and maybe I should even do that. I think they weigh a little bit less in the amount of data that they're sending, especially if you go to a list view versus doing some sort of virtual list in a portal or something. I don't know. Some limitations, you cannot click outside of the card window on the desktop. It's not effective. On iOS, that will dismiss the card window, clicking outside of it. So there's a conceptual difference there. The close icon, which is optional on card windows, can't be themed. It is what it is. Same with the opacity of a dimmed parent window. You can either have the parent window dimmed or not dimmed, but you can't change that opacity. It is what it is again. Card windows are not compatible with WebDirect or FM Server. When you use the command in those situations, it behaves the same as just creating a new window. And that's actually the way it also behaves on versions of FileMaker prior to 16. If you have new window, specify card window, and you run it on 15, the new window will generate, it'll just be a standard document window.
I have never run it, so it doesn't like just not render, it just.
Thank goodness, but it ignores, in the new Windows step in 16, we have an option to immediately go to the layout that you want to be on. So there's no more of this new window, you're on your existing layout, and then a go to layout step to take you to the layout you want to be on, which means you have 2 triggers happening, or many more.
I haven't played with this. You're gonna take us through a little bit?
A little bit, yes,
Okay.
yeah. So you can go immediate, so when you open up a new window in 16, you can specify what layout it's on, and it is immediately on that layout already. It's not switching to that layout.
So you find that you could program for 16, but knowing that 14 and 15 will work on it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
14, 15 will work, but if you do a new window and you specify your layout, you'll need to put that second step in that says go to layout.
Oh,
Which
Or
in
else
16, it
your
won't matter because you'll
card
already be
window
there.
will be in the wrong
So it's a
place.
harmless
Oh, okay.
step,
Okay.
but it is an extra step that
Okay.
you should put in if you don't know the version of
Okay.
FileMaker that's going to be
I
run.
see, okay.
Is that me or?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. A card window does not show up in the window menu.
That's what when you said this last week, or last month, I'm trying to think about and I did a little bit of fussing, I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, so card windows don't show up in the window menu. When you open up a new, so if you open up a window, and in the window menu will be the name of the window that you've just created.
Correct.
Right? If you open up another window, like a modal or whatever, that one also shows up in the list of windows.
Yes.
A card window does not. It does. You can name it. It has a name, and your get window name will work, but the name of the window does not show up in the window menu.
Okay.
So you can't switch to it that way either. But it does show up in the window names function. So if you say get window names, not get window names, if you say window names. If the card window is smaller, if you create a card window and let all the defaults stand, the card window will be the size of the layout boundaries. So whatever width you have set up, and length is based on, whatever.
Okay.
But if you create the window smaller than the layout is, it'll throw in scroll bars automatically. And I don't think you can disable that. It is, they just appear. You can create a card window larger than your parent window, and it will just take up as much screen space as it can.
So it can overflow.
It can overflow, and it can actually hide the title bar, which I learned by accident. So, but Command W still works to close the window, so you can.
As long as you have not turned off the checkbox in
For-
the script that opens the new window.
For the button, but I think Command W works. No?
Not
Okay.
if the checkbox is on.
If the checkbox, so it's be aware of what checkboxes that you have.
Unless you want to piss off your user.
Right. If you close a parent window, so if you close the parent window, the card window will close first. So if you have any triggers on that, they will happen before the parent window closes. And if you close the parent window by names, close window by name, and that same thing will happen. It'll try to close the card window first if it can.
And what if it can't?
Then you're stuck the same way you were if you had the same thing happening like with a modal window or something. With iOS, the card window is constrained to the screen. It can't be larger than the screen. I'm not sure it can be larger than a screen. I haven't tried to do a larger one on a desktop, so I'm not sure what would happen there. So this is an example from Linear Blue. That's not me, is it?
I did something.
Oh, awesome. Because I'm demoing now. I wasn't demoing before.
The meeting, so the meeting is still seeing you, but the
Oh,
projector
it's
is
just a
not.
projector. Oh,
Yeah.
never mind. I'm sorry, Todd.
You're fine. So I went to move my mouse and I put it to
So
my
I'll just watch
hotkey
your
corner and like.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
Got it, got it.
You need to turn the brightness up or anything.
So what Linear Blue uses it for is a little navigation
I
panel.
definitely can see that.
What's Linear Blue?
Just another company.
Okay.
I can't remember. Is that Agnes? Who Linear Blue is, or is?
I don't.
Well, whatever. No, I don't think it is.
Those are nice icons.
So this is a card,
So that is a card window. So I'm
and then the
clicking.
back is dimmed.
Yeah. So clicking here does nothing.
Mhm.
But I can make a selection, and then this script runs just like normal. And then they have that coming from no matter where you're at. The card window will come up. So that's one nice little.
And how are you invoking it from the regular window?
It's a script step.
Yeah, there's a script running from this. They have. Oh, can you not see my mouse at all?
No.
Can you see it on there? No.
Well, how are you, what's your script trigger on there? I mean, do you have
You
a
see that?
separate?
There we go.
entrance?
See that dot?
Oh, that's where okay.
That's where I'm
That's your
clicking.
trigger at that point. Okay,
So I'm
got it.
actually clicking a button to make
Got
the script run.
Got it.
Uh,
That's what I could not see and I didn't understand. Now I see where the card, finally I see where the card thing is.
Yeah.
And how you do that.
So the default, whenever you do the new window in a card window, if you don't specify the dimensions, it will automatically make the card window the same size as the layout, and it will automatically center it on the screen. Right? Center it within the parent window. If you do specify where you want it to be, then it will start from the upper left-hand corner as 1, 1. Not, whereas if you specify where you want a window to be, it's paying attention to the whole screen,
Right.
and it navigates from there. But with a card window, it starts in the corner of the window that you're dealing with. I'll try this again. Okay. So this, I'm just doing a couple different card windows. So this is just a little picker window with a little search and a portal with a list so that you can go through and select and make, so this is another card window and another card window. So in those instances, I'm actually closing the card window and then opening a new one. But you can just use go to layout and resize the window too.
Okay.
I was just too lazy to center it all, so I just did it that way. But one of the nice things is a card window over a popover. So the card window here is relatively small. This is a literal list view. So this is not. If I had 1,000 records, it would scroll very quickly because it's an actual list view, and it's the size of the items that I have. If I have more items, it just takes up more room. So you get a better user experience, I think. And if I move the window around, it doesn't jump very quickly, but yeah, card window is modal with that. And clicking outside doesn't do anything, but I do have a close box on that. One thing you can do, so let's see. So there is the new window script step. And we have document, which is standard, floating document, which is the same as document window. It just always stays on top, but you can interact with other windows. Dialog is a modal, so you can't interact with any window except the dialog. And then card is the new option. There you name your window, and under the layout, you can select which layout you want the window to start on. Now that works with all the different styles. So that's just kind of a nice new 16 feature for everything. And in this example, I've specified a height for the window, but I'm leaving the width to whatever FileMaker decides. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but it actually shows in a gray text what the actual pixel width, point width of and height of the whatever layout you've selected. So that's also kind of nice information to give you. Then you have your window options, which the only two for a card window is whether or not you're going to show the close box, which if you don't, you just got to remember to stick a button on there to close the window, and whether or not you want the parent window to be dimmed. And depending how you're using the window, that's got different uses. You can do, that's a card window. Whoops. Did I lose it? Did I lose everything? So that's a card window off to the left. So I created you can create a card window completely outside your parent window. It doesn't even have to be part of it. I didn't gray out, I didn't dim the parent window, but you can, and the whole window would be dimmed. And the card window stays with, if that's going to move, even though it's outside, it's still part of it. So that will stay with you as you move it around.
You used to make your position like negative.
Yep. Negative, I moved it negative, I don't know, 100 and 200 points over something to the left. So you can do that. This is a centered card without the dimming. And with this one, you can click and make it go away. Centered. So if I click over there on the outside, the window goes away. The way I'm doing that is with a plugin, using the Monkey Bread software MBS plugin. You can tell the plugin where the card window is. You give the dimensions of the card window, you pass that to the plugin, and then it will let you, anywhere else you click, it will treat as dismiss the window. So, and that was staggeringly easy to implement. And MBS is a very common plugin, so there could be uses for that. If you would use a card window, which I've also seen, I had one implemented, but I was having trouble with it. Using a card window instead of a drop-down list. It looks exactly like a drop-down list. It's actually very nice.
What was the Monkey Bread again? What was
the plugin's called MBS, which
MBS.
is Monkey Bread software.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's actually a suite of like tons of different functions.
2,700 functions.
There's like a million things you can do with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's got a lot of developer features. It's nice. Using it as a drop-down. So that would let you do something like actually put images in your drop-down list, you know, if that would be helpful. But it would act into the user, it would still look like a drop-down list. And my only issue with using that is clicking away wouldn't make the drop-down list go away, whereas in normal usage, a normal drop-down list would go away if you clicked outside. So the MBS plugin kind of resolves that, so it lets you treat that wholly the way it should, you know, it would respond the way that I think users would expect it to respond. That's all I have about card windows. Any questions about anything?
No, just thank you very much for disrupting my sleep again tonight while I
Sure.
think about all these things that I can be doing and trying to figure out. That's great. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to give control to somebody else?
Yeah,
Okay.
That was my bad.
Why is my Outlook open? Ignore that. All right. Yeah, so the very first feature, if you look at FileMaker's new features in FileMaker Pro 16 list, is improved layout object editing with the layout objects window. And I have to say, oh, you are seeing, yeah, okay, you're seeing my screen. It is saving my life on something I'm working on. Of course, I'm not going to show you that. I'll show you a sample file, but we'll talk about it. So what is it? It's an additional floating window that's now available when you're in layout mode. So it's really a development tool. And it allows you to see and grab every object on your layout without having to move things around. So if you're like me and you do things where when you're in browse mode, you have a merge field on the screen because you don't want someone to be able to click and type anything, but you want them to see the data. But if you're in find mode, you want the field to be there so that they can click in the field and enter search criteria. Well, you stack your objects on a layout to do that. Well, when you go into layout mode, if you have to fix the merge field that's behind the regular field, you got to move your field out of the way and so on, fix it, put it back. And if you're also like me and want everything pixel perfect, having to move things around will drive you insane because you have to get it back exactly where you left it. So the layout object window really solves all of those problems. Why is this useful? Well, I've just talked about the biggest reason. You can use the layout object window with the inspector hand in hand, so you can select the item that you want to work with and then use the inspector to make your changes to whatever it is, and you really don't even have to touch the object on the layout itself. You kind of can jump between those two palettes and get everything done. Also, really the coolest thing is it has a hide feature. So you can hide the things that are on top so that you can get at the things that are behind it. And that hide is local to you and your work session. So when you're hiding objects, they disappear from view. They don't go away, they just can't be seen. When you go back into browse mode, they're there. It's only hidden in layout mode. And then if you quit out of FileMaker and go back in, it'll all be visible again. It won't leave things hidden once you exit FileMaker. And if another developer is using the file, it won't be hidden for them either. That it's user specific for the session that you're in. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot of screens and notes. I just thought we would play a little bit. So this is just the inventory starter solution that comes with FileMaker. And let me go back to, this is their regular default screen. And it's got, fields, and you can, type in your fields, whatever you want to put. There's all your data, there's your descriptions, whatever. There's a container field, there's a portal, lots of different objects and elements. So if I go into layout mode, you can see that there is this layout objects palette now. And here's my inspector as well. So I tend to just keep everything right there side by side.
Where did you get that?
If it's not visible, you can
The
find it
layout
under the
objects?
view menu. It's right here.
All the way, okay.
Layout objects.
Oh, I see.
So you can toggle
Okay.
it on or off
Thank
from
you.
the view menu.
Mhm.
It's only in layout mode,
Mhm.
obviously, because it's, for you to control things. So what you'll see is a long list, in this case, of all of the objects that happen to be on this layout. Just to illustrate, I'm going to switch to a different layout. Let's see. There's one that only has 9 objects on it, okay? So that list, whatever screen you're on, these are the objects on that layout, okay? If you click on the item, it becomes highlighted on the layout to correspond with what you've clicked on, okay? So I've just clicked on unit price, so now over here I can see unit price. Works the other way as well. If I click on the image container, that became highlighted over here. I'm going to go back to the the desktop product details because it has so many. And I want to point out how it also has different icons to give you a quick look at, you know, what something is. So a big T, that's obviously text. So you know, if you click on that, you're going to be seeing a label somewhere is highlighted. There's transactions down here. If you click on a checkbox, you know, obviously it's going to be a checkbox on the layout, and so on. But notice as I'm clicking around here, this is their layout, their default. I just went into layout mode. Transactions are, you know, in the middle on the right, checkbox is over on the left. Now I click on manufacturer drop-down list, that's up here on the left. A couple more down is the label that goes with that, and so on. I haven't figured out what the rhyme or reason is with the ordering of these objects and the list. I don't know if it's how they were created, it just kind of puts them in the order they were created, or if the field picker did it, I really don't know, but you can change it and keep it organized. So I'm going to switch over to a copy of this layout that I made that just has a few changes to illustrate things. So, and I haven't done the whole layout yet because you don't need me to do the whole layout to get the idea, but obviously, well, hold on, let me move that. Perfect. I wanted to start at the top. So my first item is inventory list because that's this first object up here. And then item, which is the label. And then there's another text element, which is item, which is a merge field. And then another item, which is an actual field that's set as an edit box. And if I go back into browse mode, you'll notice I don't have a field to click in here. And that purple is my label. Okay? So if I go back, that's my merge field. So this is one of those examples where, you know, you have things layered on top of each other. Now what I didn't do was make it bigger to show you, you know, that obviously I can't, if I'm on the merge field and I'm trying to click here, I can't get to that field. But because I've got things in my layout objects window, I can get to it this way, okay? So I can just click on it over here, and now it's highlighted. If I double click, by the way, I can rename it to whatever I want. So in my layout objects, I know what I'm looking at. So I know that that's the item field that I want to work with, okay? And then I can make changes to that field over in my inspector palette. I can put a different colored background on it or whatever I want to do, and I'm not touching my merge field, okay? Now if I click here, I'm touching my merge field. But if I don't want to see my merge field, I can just click that hide over here, and it makes it disappear. So when I click off of it, you probably can't see it too well here, but it's grayed out. So it's light gray, so I can still see there's a merge field there, but it's not visible on the screen over here. It's not in my way. And then if I turn it back on, I can do that. So that works with any object. So over here is the container field. If I hit hide, all of a sudden you can see what's on the layout behind the container field. I just have some text, but you couldn't see it while the container was still visible. So anyway, back to my ordering things. You know, I went through and started putting things in the order that I thought made sense. Now, one thing I would like to see in a future version is for when I do this to actually affect tab order. It does not affect tab order, which I was kind of hoping it would, that if I organized it in here the way I wanted it, that tab order would follow. That is not the case. So if I go into tab order, it will stop caring about my layout objects at that moment. So That's really the coolness of it. You can tell from the different icons what it is. You know, here's a portal. So if I click on the portal, you can see the whole portal's highlighted, and then it expands. There's a drop down here, and it shows all of the objects within the portal. You know, the portal has a button bar in it. The button bar even expands. There's an in button and an out button. And then there's another button here. You know, and again, I can right click or double click on it to change the name, because that just says button. But maybe I want to say that this is a portal delete button. You know, when you've got a lot of objects on your layout, it can be a lot more helpful to label things in a way that makes sense to you. So, I mean, labels are nice and easy because, or text is nice and easy because it's literal, but, you know, the fields and the buttons certainly can benefit from being renamed. But again, you can move all of this stuff around any way you want to so that it is easy to find and more organized.
If you move them around in the list, does it stick through restarts?
Moving the items around in the list, yes. So if I save this layout, go away, come back, this list is still this way. Yes. The only thing that doesn't stick is if you hide a bunch of things. You know, and you can also shift click and hide a whole bunch of things at once. So I just hid all those fields at one time. Okay, so, and it looks kind of scary on the layout because all of a sudden, oh my gosh, my stuff disappeared. So make sure if you go to a layout and this window doesn't happen to be open, you know, if your layout objects window is not open and you go there and you're like, oh my gosh, where did my stuff go? Well, actually, it won't happen because look, when I close the layout object window, the stuff is visible again. Okay, so it knows not to terrify you.
We have an anti-terror.
Yeah, let's confirm that. So I hid them so you can't see them.
Really
But
can't.
I close the
Nope.
layout objects, and as soon as I close the layout object palette, it's like, oh, nope, we don't want you to think they're gone. They're still there. So
The
that's
screen went
actually
black,
smart.
That's why we were
Yeah.
laughing.
Oh, did it? And I'm not looking up there, so I didn't know. So, yeah, anyway, if you use a lot of objects on your layouts, especially if you layer things for different effects, this is a super, super helpful, useful thing to get used to. It does not come on by default, you know, so you do have to remember under the view menu to select it, to bring it up. But if you do, you won't be sorry.
Or on the bar?
So,
And if you don't layer stuff, you're gonna start layering stuff.
yeah,
It looks
because
like
now
it.
you can.
The
What also
hardest-
does, if you have grouped objects, you
It's-
can select, on the list, you can select any one of the
Mhm.
items in the group
Mhm.
and then deal with it as if it were not in the group. But you don't have to ungroup and regroup.
Ungroup.
Yes, that is a good point. Thank
Oh.
you.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
2 thumbs up.
Two thumbs up on that
Yes.
one, yes.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
So you
You
don't
can get-
lose the buttons that were attached
Cool.
and stuff like that.
Right. And while you have any object selected, you know, whatever is selected, you can, you know, control it completely through your inspector palette.
Mhm.
You could change what the field is. You can change any placeholder text. You can, you know, change whatever settings, change your styles, everything that you can do just by, you know, clicking here first so that you have the correct object selected, you have the control.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the other thing that I like is that when you do like the right click in the layout objects,
Mm-hmm.
you can do conditional formatting and assign script triggers.
Right.
When you do what, say that again, please?
Conditional formatting,
Yeah, yeah.
script triggers, because you used to have to like go to your layout object and right click on it. They both felt like things that should have been in the inspector.
Right.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
still not in the
Yeah.
inspector, but at least they're
There.
out
Okay.
somewhere that makes it a little bit more, where you can get to
Yeah.
level for.
So you can get to those from your objects, layout objects, right?
Mhm.
Is what you're saying,
Right.
okay.
But one of the problems is that it does tie itself to even stuff that you haven't done that to. So if you create a new portal window and you try to go in and do conditional formatting to it, it's actually going to be embedded in part of it. You actually have to go into layout objects and choose that. If it's, you can exit when you see the drop down, like that, that portal there. If you wanted to try and change those in or outs with conditional, you can't do it unless you go into the layout objects. It's the, I think it's the best thing, and it's one of the most confusing things, because things you used to be able to just go under conditional formatting, you can't do it because it's now embedded as part of an object. But what I did like about it is I can take an entire group of items, group them together, and name that hide. So then when I go in my list and I look for the word hide, I can find all my groups that are hidden and turn them off as groups. And then just go to the one group, open it up, and then I can work on the items inside of it. The thing I don't like is you can't resize them in there though.
That is a good point. This is searchable too. So, you know, if you have tons of objects, you can search for whatever you want to search for. Typing the word edit and getting all the things that say edit box. Or, you know, I can say unit because there were a bunch of things that had unit price, unit cost, and so on. You also can filter, show me just my text objects. You know, let's say you wanted to do some sort of style changes. And you were going to select all of your text and make it a different color and a different font, a different size, and then save the style kind of thing. You could select all of them here at the same time. If there are shapes, if there are fields, you know, you can filter the list for whatever objects, or you can just show all. So, yeah.
So you graded unit price and extended price and all of that.
Right, if you know what you're looking for,
Everything that
you can
type
just jump right to it, exactly. So you don't have to be digging around looking where is it on the screen and is it behind something else and so.
Or going in and doing them all one by one.
Yeah.
So you do them all at once.
Right.
The one thing that I've noticed is, I mean, it's not a showstopper because it's so much better than the way you used to, but I'm used to like when you like have a group of objects and you change your anchors, it changed the anchors for each object inside the group. So if you ungrouped it, it still retained how you had the anchor set for the object or the group. But now it seems like if you group the object, the anchors for the objects inside the group are still whatever they were. So if you ungroup it and you go into without regrouping them, stuff's not where you. And it's like, wait a minute, I fixed that, and then I realized what it was is I had changed the anchors in the group, and they didn't filter down like they were used to. I don't know if anybody's experienced that or not.
I haven't done enough of it with the.
I haven't done that with anchors.
That's good to know too.
At least, I mean, it seemed like that's what was happening, because I was like,
yeah.
where I fixed this, why is it now over here on the left again? You know,
That's a good point.
But I mean, I can live with that, with everything else they gave us that it does.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, you know, I'm not gonna complain.
Yeah,
I
no.
still will. I still want to be able to resize.
Well, I mean, you can if
You want,
the
well,
size is something you want to set your dimensions here. You
well,
know,
what I did is I grouped everything together. I took a bunch of items and grouped them together. Same thing as if you put a script onto it.
Yeah.
Same type of thing. Once you do that, they're grouped together. So I have them as a group, and they're all called hide this, hide this, hide that. I can open it up and I can go make changes to every single item inside of it, but I can't change the size of the item without ungrouping it. I can't even reposition it. Once they're grouped in one of those, whatever they are,
all right, so let's say,
one of those layout objects.
so if we group these,
And I don't know if I'm breaking my non-disclosure, but that's going to be fixed in the next one.
okay, so here's a group. So each of these items is 266 by 35 for their sizes. Are you saying you'd want to change, let's say, oh, I see, okay, I'm clicking on it and this is grayed out, so I can't control that here. But if I click here, there's the width and the height. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so you still have to ungroup it to make that change. And then at that point, you're going to lose your script trigger tied to that box.
And undo doesn't work either. Oops.
It's something
Good
they're
to
working
know.
on.
Yeah, all right, very good to know. So that can be annoying, yeah. Does it let you ungroup them then? I don't see ungroup now. Can I just drag them out of the group? No. Right other. Yeah, I don't see an ungroup option now. Oh, there it is. Okay, I just didn't have it selected properly.
Just to give you an idea, that's what I built.
Yeah, you definitely benefit from the layout objects.
Well, I wasn't gonna do it until I saw it. I've never done anything like that before.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Wow.
just
figured-
because you can doesn't mean you should.
I wanted to see how extreme I could get.
Beth, does this do anything for being able to drag an object into a portal? And I always end up having to fuss to get it in exactly the right place, so it's really inside.
I don't think that it would do that. I mean, I suppose, well, let's test it. Let's take this taxable field and drag it onto this portal and see. It's still sitting here, so it's not considered part of this portal right now.
Okay,
But let
what
me
does it
see
take to
if
get-
I grab it from here and I drag it onto the portal or into this area. Let's see if it'll let me put it in there. Yeah, it doesn't seem to want, it can let me move it around, but it's not letting me put it within. So I think the answer is no.
That's
So-
too bad, that would be useful.
Oh,
That would be very
yes.
useful, because I know that that's a really annoying thing to try to get things into a portal.
Yeah, that
but-
is seriously annoying. I mean, I don't know how other people do it, but I now have some automatic keys in my finger which make the thing very small. Then you copy it and have it outside, and then you copy it again and put it inside. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that, it's very fussy to do that. And I just happen to know that that sequence reliably puts it inside, but then of course I have to make it bigger again, so that.
Right. Yeah,
That's
that's a
really
good
something.
suggestion, though. I mean, this is new to 16, and every time they come up with something new and cool, we know it can be better.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely good feedback for a future release, to be able to control, putting things within a portal from here. That makes great sense.
Yeah, you just need a way of saying, this is in a portal, which means it will fit itself as best it can into the row. And
Right.
Then you'd have no use for your nudge tools. Yeah, I think it's been great and it's been challenging at the same time.
well, that's part of why it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real shift.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it made me change the way I design. I
Yeah.
mean, cards is one thing and this was the other.
So you two hit the big conceptual things you need to wrap your minds around, which make you a very different program.
Yeah, they showed me a new function and I just beat it up. Or I let it beat me up. One thing I hate about 16 now is Windows sessions. Every time you open a new window, it actually creates a new session of Windows and they'll both appear in the dock. So all of a sudden your users are used to having a window hidden and you can go to new Windows and see your new windows. But now when they're running on Windows, it actually starts to bring everything up inside of the dock.
Okay. I guess I've got to set up on Windows to know that
Yeah.
that's how it behaves.
They're individual sessions. So in fact, if you look at your server, each one of those users shows up multiple times every time they have a session. They actually take up a user.
And that happens because they all have their own menu bars and everything now. That's why
Yep.
Windows is treating them as sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what a resolution to that, it's doing kind of what it should.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
You just
yeah.
gotta stop using new windows.
Browse mode. If I go back into layout mode, whatever I've done is still here. However, if, for example, I hide a bunch of fields. Okay, whoops.
I thought you were talking about the actual layout objects window.
That panel?
That
Oh,
panel,
this panel.
that panel.
Yeah, if I close this panel right now while these things are hidden, it makes them appear again. If I go
Right,
into
but-
browse mode right now, they're still visible in browse mode. They
Right.
never disappear from there. But if I go back into layout mode, they're still hidden.
Okay, I honestly was thinking that you were talking about the actual objects, layout objects panel that was there.
This I am-
When you close your solution,
Mhm.
that thing went away, and that if you came back into it again, you would have to go up to view layout objects again.
Oh, no, no,
That's
no.
what I was under the
Yeah.
understanding.
No, what
Now,
I'm saying
Once you have
is,
it up there, it just seems like it's gonna be there,
yeah,
unless
One-
you dismiss it.
once you have it open, it does appear to persist.
Okay,
Because I keep it open now. I don't think it's open by default in 16, I'm not sure.
no, but if you
But
open
once
it,
you open it,
and I've
it
opened and
stays
closed
open.
the
Yes.
solution
If I
numerous
go-
times, and it's always
If
coming
I
You
go-
back.
haven't
if I
quit
go to layout
FileMaker.
mode,
Pardon?
and
You
I
haven't
go in
quit
and I show my
FileMaker?
Yep.
layout objects.
And it
And then-
stayed open even
Go
through
to
a
browse
When you
quit?
went back
When I
in.
went back in
Layout mode,
and
it's
opened
there.
up,
Oh, okay.
went to edit
If I
layout,
close
it-
it's right there again.
Right, what I'm
Go to
saying
browse
will
mode, I go back into layout mode.
change is
It's
these
not
things
there.
that are hidden.
Okay.
They
no,
will become visible
Right,
again. They will
right.
no longer be hidden.
Right,
Yep.
So that you don't start from a point where things are missing on your
Mhm.
screen.
Yeah,
understood.
hers seem to come
Thank
back
you.
up.
Mhm.
Yours seem to come back up when, even though you closed your layout objects or your layout window, when you went from layout to browse and you went back into layout,
Mhm.
it came back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't.
Mine did.
If I go into layout mode,
You have 16.1, we're on 16.3.
so I go into browse mode,
Mhm.
go back into layout, it's there. I exit out, go into browse, go into layout.
Well, right,
And
because
it's
you
cool.
exited,
You
you
exited out.
closed it.
But you closed, I thought you closed yours as well.
No.
No,
Okay, so
No.
once you close it, it goes away.
Then it goes
Right.
away, yeah.
And then you have to go back under view to find it again.
But if you bring up a different solution in FileMaker,
It's
it's
holding on,
separate.
it's holding on your FileMaker Pro.
it's holding on to the FileMaker, right?
so that's all I've got, unless there's any more questions.
Thank you both. That
Yes.
was excellent.
Yes, yes.
I did have a question, if anybody knows this one. If you have a whole bunch of scripts running on your server, a bunch of server scripts, and is there any way to export those to be able to bring them into a new, if you install a new server, to be able to import those back in?
Server scripts?
Yeah, if you have a bunch of server-side scripts that are
If there's
schedules
schedules, you can export the
You should be able
schedules.
to export the schedules
Yeah.
in your
in the server.
server.
Yes. There's whatever the installation guide is for 16, because I know we did that. We exported, I did an upgrade from 14 to 16 recently for a client, and I followed the steps that they had for doing an upgrade. And
migrations.
it talks about saving the schedules. There's a command in server to do it, something like that. And I forget where it puts it, but it's all in that documentation. And then you import it back in the next version, or on the other server, or whatever.
Awesome.
And what I learned the hard way, and I want to say it downloads it because you're in a browser, it's where your default download folder is where it goes, is make sure you see the download start. Because I did an upgrade once and just clicked the button and assumed that it was there, and had blown away the server before I realized, no, it's not really in that folder.
Oops.
So I had to recreate my schedules, they were mostly just backups, but I had to recreate my schedules based on when I got the emails telling me the schedules had completed. So I did not recommend that, so just make sure.
Just another general tip, though, with stuff like that, screenshot everything
Everything.
before you change anything.
And I was good with that when I had 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
I've got about 30 of them now.
But
You do
still, those screenshots can be a lifesaver
It's like,
if you have to
and
recreate
then
things.
It's like, something dot settings is like the name of the file or something. It's been a while since I've done that.
I did it a few weeks ago and I can't remember. My short-term memory's gone, but,
Because it's in the upper right corner of the admin console, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
That's simple. Yeah, it's under server. Server, save schedules and groups.
So who's next?
Well, I had a couple things, but I don't need to talk about them because you guys already talked about the sexy stuff.
Should I make
It's not all
you
about
or
sexy stuff.
you the presenter again?
Ice cream?
Ice cream, what?
What?
Oh, ice cream.
Did you say?
Squirrel.
Oh, I heard something about ice cream.
I don't know.
I think it was
I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream.
Somebody say ice cream cake? What?
Paul's been asking about ice cream, Todd.
Absolutely. I mean, what I've got is like super simple, because like I said, the first two things I thought of to talk about were the two things that you guys wanted to talk about, so it's like, I gotta come up with something. This is like, not, actually, I got excited when I read this in the function list, you know, like what was new for 16. And I don't know if anybody has used this, but there's actually now a unique values function. If you want to,
Oh, yeah.
if you
You
want
unique
to,
up on it?
yeah, not quite.
We're not trying to catch a unicorn.
Because I was really proud of myself whenever I figured out how to do this. Which is use, you know, the execute SQL statement to get a distinct
Distinct,
list,
yeah.
you know. And the only reason why I formatted it that way is because I don't know SQL. But if I do it this way to escape out all the non-SQL characters that FileMaker lets you use, it makes sense to me. So I apologize for the regular SQL people that know how to write it, you know, regularly. But it's just, you know, select distinct from the first name column, you know, from the table, and you know, that kind of thing. So anytime I wanted a unique list, I had to do that. So I have that, you know, run that script. So I run that script. You know, it comes over here, it sets this, you know, value and comes up with 2,330 unique first names in this table of almost 50,000 random names that were generated. Now, with that function, you can do it this way.
Very FileMaker-y.
Yeah.
Table. Oh, okay.
Where it's like the function is called this. Now there's a couple options that you can send to it, and it has to do with like the sort order and like the location, whether you want to use like determine like uniqueness by capitalization or things like that, which who worries about that, right?
People who make jury lists.
Yeah. But the way that I was getting because obviously you have to, if you're dealing with related tables, you just do a list and you can get your list of values and then you put it through that and you get your unique. Well, because I was in the same table, I was originally doing it with a custom function that I found on Brian Dunning's site where you just start with the first record and it gives you a list of your found set. Well, it wasn't working and I couldn't figure out, okay, why is it not? Well, then I realized I actually had exceeded the recursion limits of the custom function because I had 50,000 records in my table. So I had to do it a different way. And I'm just actually using the summary field list of IDs. And because of how it was named, it's like, well, these aren't IDs, they're names. I don't want to use that. Well, that's how I got my list of names and then fed it into the function. Now, the only reason, or the only thing that they do that they work differently is because it's a summary, it's affected by your found set. So if the found set is smaller, it's gonna get, it'll get the unique values of the found set, not of everything in the table like the execute SQL would get you. So there's probably still use cases for select distinct in the execute SQL, but if you want a completely FileMaker way to do things, unique values exists. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then I did do this is just the new Windows script step. I mean, obviously Thomas already touched it because he declared the card window. But what I did is I have a script trigger that, as you can see, that obviously runs. So I have a simple script here that's, open new window, and then it goes to a layout to do like some work in a script. And that's, really all it does. Well, because of how it works, it opens the new window, but it's still on the parent window. So it runs the script trigger, and then you got to click OK before it actually moves over to the other one. Well, because of the new method, because the go-to layout is built into the new window, it never actually fires that script trigger that was on the parent window. So you don't have to, okay, well, I got to set this binary value so I know to skip the script trigger if I'm doing this function, but not if I'm doing that thing. So those were just a couple of quick, simple things I really like that I wanted to share. So anybody else want to say anything before we eat cake? Okay. Let me just throw these up here real quick. We're skipping one more thing because we want cake.
We've already done that.
There's some information on compatibility with High Sierra 1602, and then 1503 Pro and Pro Advanced, and Server 1504. And then obviously the other versions have not been tested. However, they did just come out with a 1504 update for Pro and Pro Advanced, which they claim addresses an issue related to the temporary cache and has nothing to do with High Sierra compatibility. But take it for as you will. And then I think there's like some release notes. Go in iOS 11, 15 and 16, there's no problems reported, but there are 2 knowledge base articles that have additional information if you would want to get in and check either of those things out.
Cricket.
Sorry.
That boring.
Sorry about
I
that.
didn't know if that was a commentary on my.
I thought you added it to your animation.
So we asked about SSL connections. We were pretty much spread across the board. Here's some of the ways we learn our FileMaker skills. I was pleased that 100% of the people that responded said they come to FMburgh for this reason, so that made me happy. And then we were talking about fall activities. Apparently we asked the question when there was still a chance that people were going to watch a winning season by the Pirates, but that's another story. And once again, I think last year Leaves won, so Leaves had 100% of the responses as well. So, next meeting will be November 1st. Still don't know when the developer conference is going to be or where it's going to be.
I guess you'll be cheap.
Yeah.
That was in New York.
And then Blade Runner comes out on Friday. So.
Yes, it does.
And then I think next month we're going to try and do another show and tell. Hopefully Thomas Waters will be feeling better and he'll be able to share, and we'll get somebody else that wants to share too. So that's all we got.
Cool.
I usually start.
Let them eat cake. It's time.
That's one thing I didn't forget, was cake and ice cream. I've been thinking about cake and ice cream the whole time.
I should have developed my solution samples around the cake and ice cream.
That's right, you could have had a cute
That's
cake and
right.
ice cream icon.
Could have hidden cake and then showed cake and then hidden cake.
We never would have stayed put all
You
the
can never have the ice cream
Right
behind the cake.
I like them.
I know, but I don't mean it like the music, but you could have played cake.
I just wasn't sure who else was going to get it.
Where's Teresa? Nobody
Uh,
else. You probably
she
were
had
the only
to
person
do
that knew
something
what I was
with
talking about.
What, there's a group code cake?